take off the adapter there and the hop and the bits. There you go. The seals there, the gasket. Next, remove this rotary arm. The way that you're going to do that is with a pair of these. These are snap ring pliers. These are smaller ones because this is going to go this little small snap ring right there. Shred it. Comes out that easy. At this point, what you're left with is this piece, this eyelet here, that little bar shaft, another snap ring on the other side, and 2 washers on the inside. So you stick your finger up inside of there. That bar comes out, and you can remove this eyelet. Trying to be gentle to catch both of the washers. Generally recommend putting it together like that and setting it to the side until you're done cleaning. Okay, now this is completely loose. You can just hang there. Now you need to remove this screw here. Sizes. Wrong size. Pause you for a sec and I'll come right back. With this, you got an Allen wrench. Turn it to the left. Once you go a little bit loose, it'll slip right off. That's what you've got. Set it to the side. Now I have a pair of large snap rings, the pliers. You can use that same one that have different heads on them. I just have a much larger size. You can take, well actually, we're going to remove these first. My apologies for the mix-up. Before removing them though, come down here, this little gap right here, these two are in decent space. If you need to check where they are, you check their spacing here, you check their spacing here on the flange, or you can actually get them lined up there and check your measurement from back of this to here, to ensure that you're that they're correctly. But one of the easiest ways to look to start with is to see if this is lined up. If this is lined up correctly, you're normally okay. But then you need to check your measurements and make sure that you're good. But that's kind of a good indicator. Once you get that set up and you've done your measurements and made sure that everything's good, make a mark right at the bottom. You can use a score tool or a Sharpie, either way. Just make that mark all the way around it. Okay, so where you're going to be looking for. Now you can also do a mark on the rotary itself, on the base of the rotary, to be able to bring it back to that exact same spot. So now you have a measurement here, a line here, a line here, a line here, and a line here to line that piece up in order to ensure that you get it straight every single time. It's just a simple way of not having to think about it, just doing it. Okay. Then you have 2 sets of screws, one here and one here, one set and one set. These are what hold this rotary to this block, and this block and that rotary to this plate. And you just take it loose. Okay. That's 2 of your screws. Be careful with the lock washer and the fender washers. You're going to want to try to keep those. Set that to the side. Okay, now the only thing that's holding this rotary on is this clamp on that ferrule down there, that fairing. Okay, take that in out of the way. It doesn't hurt. Make a notch on there to ensure kind of where you're. These rotaries in the open position are going to be. This is going to be forward, which has pushed this whole assembly forward. It's shifted that way. And now you're open to the front and closed to the top. I'll show you that in the rebuild portion of this, of the rotaries. And when it's closed, this is back. These are open to the hopper, well, to that adapter piece into the hopper, and these are closed. You can't go through into there when that's in the back position. What that does, that allows suction from the hopper into the cylinders, and then when it turns and pushes forward, it allows pressure to build up from those pistons pushing forward and push the product out of that hole. But if this doesn't close up, what you'll have is it'll push pressure up into the hopper, and it won't push anything out the front. Okay. I got that hopper loose. Pull that entire assembly apart. Okay. This piece goes in there in a very specific way. That's why I made that mark. It doesn't have to stay there, but if you make that mark, it's pretty easy to get it back right where it needs to be pretty much every time. So now you have a mark on the bottom of your rotary where this block meets up. Okay. And you have a mark on here and here that actually allows for it to, you to line that block up on the base, and it allows for you to line it up side to side. And I will show how to break this down in just a moment. With you, I'll go ahead and pull that out of there. Periodically, you kind of have to file this to match that, just a fair warning. Set all that to the side. Okay. Now, you would think I would loosen those first, but I'm not. The reason why is because currently I have this in a vise, and I can go ahead and knock that loose and do what I need to this rotary while it's still attached. It just saves me a little trouble on a vise. Now you can do the exact same thing with the other side by removing this one, and do them both on here, and if you don't have a vise, either way. But got my snap ring pliers. There you go. Now we got that removed. Now that we have that removed, we have this tool that we provide you with. That hole goes up over that, and yeah, it makes it a little bit safer to hit this. Okay, and then you just smack it in order to get it loose. Okay, as you notice, I did not remove this snap ring plier, this snap ring clamp, because this rotary, one of these, this is actually larger than this one. So what you're doing is you're knocking it out so that you don't, it's just making less work for you. Right back with you. My apologies, I should have done that on camera. I put something down here to catch all this because of the white. I smacked it a couple times with this, but we'll finish it off. Okay. Now that we've gotten to the base of that, see it's still kind of in there. Take your rubber mallet and just tap it a few times, and it'll come loose. And wipe it down. All I'm doing is wiping off the food grade assembly grease on this one. What you'll be doing is taking this whole thing to a cleaner, but you can take the O-rings loose like that. Oh, excuse me. See? You're left with a rotary and the rotary core assembly. Okay. Now, if you need to break it down further, you can take this snap ring plier out, tap this bearing out, and this whole block, it's just a block of steel at that point. But that's a sealed bearing in there, so you should be able to actually scrub it down inside of there and everything, and you'll be okay. And for the sake of this video here, we'll just wipe it down now. Okay. What you're going to do here now that you've got that loose, all taken care of, in your assemblies, you'll probably take this to a washer, and that's perfectly fine, but you'll want to take all of this completely loose. The screws to the side in a safe place. You definitely don't want to lose them. One can hold it fine, but you don't really want to do that unless you absolutely have to. Okay. And what you're left with, you see down inside of there, you have a sealed bearing on the end, and you have the inside of that rotary. You can take this piece off, by using that tool. Actually, you generally have to use the back of your hammer or something like that that'll fit down inside of there, because of the small size of the rotors on this one. Something wooden works great for this. But when you take that whole block and you can wash that entire block down, put it into a washer, you know, autoclave or something like that. Next, we'll take these, take all 4 of these clamps completely loose. If you can hold on to your tools, that is. Let's see what I can adjust for you. Okay. Now you're taking all these loose. These are pretty awesome little clamps because once you get one side loose, the other side loosens up pretty quick. And you just roll it on off. See? Pretty simple, pretty easy process here. Now that you've got these clamps off of it, set them to the side just like you do everything else. Safe place so that nothing gets lost. Grab this right here and here and kind of wobble it forward and slide off just like that. Set it to the side. Okay, do your next one. You're going to grab onto here, grab onto here, grab onto here. Comes up. What you have is you have a solid cylinder there. So you can stick it in the wash, autoclave, that sort of thing. Okay, so what I have found that works best is just a regular box-end wrench that's the right size. I'll have to find the size out, but I use these as well. These work fine. And you loosen that head up, unscrewing it to the left. There's a washer, sometimes it gets stuck on there, and make sure it stays. Sometimes you'll have this blue piece, sometimes you won't. This can thread onto here, and this nut would just tighten up against the back side of this, along with that washer and one of these fender washers and that lock washer. And that would just give you a little bit more room in the cylinder is all. Okay. And then you take the O-rings off and wash it, clean it, put it in the washer, that sort of thing. And then once you're done with that, you can put it back on. The easiest way to put it on, this part of it on though, let's go ahead and tighten that on before we start tightening it up. Both of these pistons work the exact same way, so it's the exact same process on both of them. And what I'm gonna do, see if that one just unscrews just like that, just like that. So I'm gonna tighten it back up. Just wanted to show you that. along with my tools will be alright. And we're tight. Now you're being careful not to mar that bushing there. This little rubber bushing there. At this point, you've got it all the way torn down. You know, you got those, taking them off, you've cleaned them, that sort of thing. If you want to take these shafts off, and you really don't want this in there because you're afraid it's going to, you know, contact product or whatever, you can unscrew this, put this onto this shaft, and then you can unscrew from these. There's 2 screws back here. Should be similar size, okay? And that's the next size up on your Allen wrench. And then this whole shaft will come out, and you can wash it as well. Now, if you're having inconsistency issues, one side is constantly doing a little bit more than the other, then you could look at this, and you can adjust these on that thread in and out a little bit to make that cavity a little bit less or a little bit more on either side, depending on which side you're wanting to adjust and for the reason you're adjusting. What we do here, just a little dab. Normally I do it with the O-rings off. It's okay, we can do it here. Just a little bit of H3 food lube. This is a full contact food grade lubricant that we actually supply with the machines. And then you wipe off a little bit of the excess. That one on. That one on. Now, if you want to try to line these up exactly right every single time, you can look at this back spot back here where this bolt, you can just kind of line it up right up with that. Get you as close as possible to perfectly in sync every single time. And then you have your adjustments here. If you make your adjustment here and you like it best to do it that way, if it's find it easy, then you make your adjustment with the rotaries. They have a slot to slip in and out. The bolts can slip in and out a little bit. So you just loosen that bolt, make your adjustment here, and then make your marking after you make that adjustment. And then you always have your marking here, your marking on the rotary. You're able to measure all that if you wish, and you've got this flush with that backing plate, so you know that both your cylinders are at the exact same spot. Your rotaries, you're going to be at the markings at the exact same spot. And if you're getting a little bit fill off on one side or the other, like if this one's filling too much and this one's filling too little, like a little bit less than this one every time, you can adjust this one out back a little bit or this one out a little bit to make them balance out. Now these are the fill heads for the SGP 250. Fill heads for any of the SGP machines will work this exact same way. All you'll need is an Allen wrench. See? This is 5/32 that I'm using. For the sake of the video, I have removed 3 of the screws and loosened one of the other ones to ensure that I make this kind of as short as possible. Okay. You break it loose by using this end, so you have a little bit more leverage because of the length. Then use like that. Okay. I'm looking for a little bit better camera angle. Sorry. Now that you've gotten your 2 screws out, one on that side, one on that side, that you have to take out first, now you can pry that, well not pry, you can pull that apart. What you're left with is just a complete open piece Like that's obviously ready to clean. Throw in the washer or that, whatever you want to do there. This piece, this is your fill head. This is a completely separate system. Like the right here. This is your air cylinder. This is your whole fill head. I apologize. This air cylinder is completely separate from your food product. It does not come in contact with your food product at all. This attachment point here attaches to the shaft there. That shaft itself comes into contact, but not this one. Okay. Now these screws are inside of there. Inside there's an O-ring that keeps them from getting to the product. However, you'll want to take them out and clean them if you're really wanting to like break it down and ensure that no possible areas, that sort of thing. Okay, stainless screw that we have in there. There's a little sleeve that goes over it. Okay, the next screw, next sleeve. Notice this little piece slips in and out of that little keyed slot there. If I can get it close to you, see it there. Okay. Now this air cylinder sits to the side. If you absolutely want to, you can use the snap ring pliers that you already have. Take that piece loose right there, and this whole assembly will slide out of there. Wipe it down, grease it, lube it, whatever, and then put it back together. We don't generally recommend it. We generally recommend just replacing them because you run the risk of damaging the seals in there, and then you have to buy a new one. So there's that. Okay. Now you have this little shaft, the one that came up to there. Pull it out. You have an O-ring right here. Pop it off, and that will be ready to clean. However, this is around that shaft also. It's actually on that piece right there. The shaft comes out of the middle of there. Slide that out. Take that off. Set it to the side. It's ready to clean as it sits. And what you're left with is you have an O-ring right here that you need to remove. And this Delrin piece. The easiest way to get it is you take this at a slight angle on that O-ring gently and push up. See how it popped out? Now you have that entire piece taken apart. Take the O-ring off. It's ready to clean. Take the O-rings off. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. This piece goes up inside of that cavity right there. So I'll show you how it goes back together in a moment. This is where you put a little bit of lube, and then your other O-ring. Okay, take those O-rings off, and you can wash that as well. Now, in order to put that back together, and do it kind of quickly, just kind of in a process. I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm just going to do it. That's your fill head. I didn't show you how to take that off because you're just unscrewing it. But you're ready to roll with that. Now that you've taken it apart and you put it through all your process and got it cleaned. This fill head worked the exact same way. We have here the rotaries for an SGP dual head. I'm going to show you a representation of it. I have kind of it broken down a little bit for sake of time. In one of the other videos, I show that you take your mallet and you beat it, and I'll kind of demonstrate that. Show it a little bit in a second. See how that little piece actually fits in there, kind of like a puzzle piece. If for some reason you damage either one of these sides, that little piece will not fit in there correctly. So you have to be very careful with those two pieces. That's where these tools that we made and we supply with you come into play. It sits on that recess right here, and it doesn't damage that. If you drop it in the sink or something like that, then that can get damaged. So you just kind of take care with that section on both shafts, because I'll show you in a second. There's one on both. If for some reason this gets damaged a little bit and it's just a little bit off, you can actually take a file on that flat side. See those spots right there? I'll show you. You actually take a file on this flat spot, that spot, that spot, and that spot to make them fit correctly. The best thing to do is just be really careful with those. They're not like super bad about bending, but what I have found is that people drop these in the sink in like a big thing of water or something like that, or they drop them on the floor and they damage them, and then they wonder how it got broken. So there's that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to demonstrate how it knocks out. But see how I left that on one side? This is the exact same as this. These rotaries are basically the same thing, just with a different core. See how wide that bearing is? That bearing is generally encapsulated back behind, something like that, so you don't see it. But I'm trying to show you in this video that this one's bigger than this one. You can push this one out that direction without ever removing that bearing. It's sealed up inside of there. You can wash it with the rotary. You can do pretty much anything. If you absolutely need to, same pliers and tapping it, and you can actually tap it out through this way and make both bearings come through, but then you're going to make this bearing slide across that entire piece. A lot more chance to damage it, whereas you could tap it out this way and then go back in there with something wide. These rotaries are a little bit too small for this to be able to do all the way down through there. So you'd need something just that has a flat end like that to go down inside of there to catch both of those races, to be able to tap it out of there. If you don't, you run the risk of damaging your bearing. Okay. I do the same thing in here. So here's that one's loose, and that one's still in there. It also makes it easier when you go to tap this bearing, this shaft back in there. That bearing stays put. So even if you take it out, you want to put it back in and then put it back together before you tap it in, because then you're going to fight it forever if not. Have it in just enough to have to tap out. Okay. This one, let's see. There. This one I still had the O-rings off of, so I could show you just easily how they are. This is your main. I mean, these are sealed bearings. You can wash it just like it is. That over it, like that. Over it. It's a little bit more difficult because it's got the bearing there. Generally, I just stretch it on like that and work it around. See how it just pops down into that, and you run your thumb around. That's good. And that's that. Like that, in those pieces, you can wash this entire thing just like it is. Like I said, if you absolutely want to, you can take this bearing out by tapping it out this way. There's a little groove down inside of there. You can't take it through it. You have to pull it out this way. And perfectly fine if that's what you guys choose to do. Okay. Snap ring pliers there. Okay. And generally I'll hold my thumb on that. Snap ring pliers in place. If you go too deep with your snap ring pliers, like down inside of that hole, it's going to stop you from being able to put your snap ring down far enough. So you kind of just work it in and you get it. Okay. And you take your tool and beat it in. Well, not beat it in, but I mean, see how it's got the flat side? It also will not go further than the recess there because of the smaller ones. So, kind of difficult to show you all without like a vise or something like that. The easiest way to do this is with a vise itself. And you actually set this little lip on the vise and tighten that up there, and then you can just tap all this in. It's super easy that way. I'll come back with you. I'm gonna put that one together and I'll come back with it. So basically what we're left with, all I did was took it to the vise there, use the mallet there, a rubber mallet, and I drop that down until this bottoms out onto that lip, and what you're left with is a flat rotary bearing there. Plate goes in because this rotary is only one-sided. Now this one has just the plate there, has a little hole there. It's just the same as the other one. See, what I was trying to demonstrate with both of these is sometimes they don't go in as happily as easily, so you just kind of tap them on. And this one went on super easy, so it just slipped right into place. Okay? You're left with that one. Down to the side. Okay. Now we have this big long one that confuses people sometimes because it looks different. But it works on the exact same principle. Except for this one is double-sided, so this one has a hole and this one has a hole. What you do is look at it, make sure that you're orienting correctly. So even if you have to set the rotaries beside each other, that way you know this side has to be facing that. So you put it together. Like that, and then see how that bottoms out onto that lip. Don't hit this piece ever. You hit this piece, you're going to bend it, and you're going to be repairing this or this, because this will mushroom out and then you will not be able to get it together. It's what this tool is made for. Recesses on to that lip for that purpose, so that it never hits the top of that. See if I can maybe do it on the table here. I'm not sure that I can. Not all together. I got it mostly in there. See it starting to sink in there? Okay. Put it together and I'll come right back with you. Okay. So I did a few things to make sure I could show you something. Sometimes with that piece hitting on here, that bearing won't slide all the way down. Now, that bearing won't slide all the way down. So, though this is seated in place, this bearing's not in place correctly. What you do is take your plate, the one that goes on there normally, stick it right over the top of it, and now you can take like a screwdriver, flat something, and gently tap around it, or I normally find something like a piece of PVC or something like I have a piece of steel there, and I go around it. It doesn't touch the shaft at all. It sits right on top of that. And you tap it there, and it'll drive that bearing into place. Now, once you've got that driven into place with that piece there, put the snap ring plier on it, snap ring on it, and you're ready to go with both of them. See, now what you're looking at here also is, you can see there's a couple of different ways that this can go. I'm going to pull this apart real quick and then I'll show you how that works. What you have here is the way that these rotaries are set up. You have your clevis bracket, slips onto there like that, okay, and I made markings on it. No, sorry, I made markings on it, but you make markings on them. I didn't make it for this video. I almost forgot about that. I wanted to show how that works. That screw always goes forward on the SGPs. You have a slot there. It's pretty self-explanatory how that works. But it goes like that. This piece marries the two together. Like this. See, I made a marking on this one, on the actual. Okay. Like that. See something out of whack? Moving it. See something out of whack? There's this hole here and no hole there. It's because they're not in line. These have to be correctly lined up. So, see the three holes? What happens here is when this piece is forward, then your rotary is sitting like this. No, I'm sorry. Like that. Your rotary is sitting like this when this is forward. So it'll be kind of like that, right? And you see, not lined up 100% because I don't have it lined up. I'll turn it the right direction. Get it lined up. Now you see. See, no hole, no hole. This is facing to the top where the hopper would be coming. And when this moves back like that, this whole piece is going to move with it. And what it's going to do is that. Now it's closed off to where the hopper would be, which is this piece here, and it's open to where the fill head would be, allowing flow from the piston from the product cylinder into the fill head, and from the fill head into your bottle. So if it does that, and then it comes back to home position, which is forward, and then it shifts like that again. That's all the movement it gets. During the process, it's going to move back. That's going to move back like that. That's going to move up, and that's going to move up like that. And I mean, it's because it's on a table. It's not in like perfect position because it's because it's sitting on that hole. But it will actually be kind of like that, and it'll be perfectly centered in that hole. If for some reason you get one of these out of line, what you're going to have is the machine's going to be acting completely crazy. It's going to be doing weird feels. You're going to be pushing product back up into your hopper. There's a lot of things that will do. So ensuring that this is correct once you get them into there and making sure that they're lined up correctly will save you a world of trouble. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take one and show you how this should be going when you grab it to go. This should be a habit every time you clean the machine. When you go to put this machine back together, your habit should be to have those two holes, this hole facing directly up. Okay? It's not going to be perfect, but it'll get you mostly to where you need to be. Okay? In the same way with this one. Same thing. Because this has no notch in it, it goes out away from the other rotary. See? If I put it in like that, I'm going to have to fight it once I get it in there. However, if I hold it like this and I go ahead and just slide it through with that hole facing up, now I'm a lot closer to where I need to be. See how that almost perfectly lines up? And you know that because you didn't have to think about it, you planned that and it became muscle memory to do that. Now you know that that your rotaries are almost perfectly straight up. These are lining up. So now you know every single time that this is lined up. And you don't have to wonder about it. If you absolutely need to, you can make a notch on here across. And see how I have a little black notch there. You can barely see it, but there's one there, and there's one there. And if you line that notch up every time, you know that you're going to get a same result. But also that's in conjunction with that other portion of that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put this entire machine back together using our drawings here on the thing. We've misaligned this a little bit, so I have to realign it. And I'm going to show you kind of how to put it together, and then we will adjust it. The air that is. So now what we're going to do now is I'm going to rebuild this with these parts. And I've messed up my setting on those. See how this one's really far, this one's really far back, it's all up against it, this one's not. And using my markings and all that, we're going to put it back together. And then we'll show you how to adjust it. Okay, so now, remember I said push that flat there. Sometimes that helps with make sure they're equal. Okay. Now remember, I made these markings before setting this piece, just to kind of show you guys. What you would do is you would set this piece back here, and you would move your rotary back to where it needed to be to kind of be comfortable there and be straight and good line, and then you would make your marking. Or when you get the machine first, you can make that marking there and bring these forward to it, however you would like to do so. So I line those up with those markings. That's how you would do it if you've done it that way. Okay. Make sure you have a seal on your back of your rotary. Place it in place. Put it in place. Making sure that it fits correctly in there. Okay, now you've got these screws that go in from the bottom. In the hole there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of doing to get that thing in there correct. Move that back. Find the hole, screw it in. Okay, now what I have right now is partially together. Nothing's tight. I'm not going to tighten everything down completely until I get the other rotary on. If you do it the other way, what you'll be doing is fighting the machine to do what you need to do. You don't really want that. Okay, get that. Make sure that's set. You know, we held it in place. When you tap it in, sometimes it gets moved a little bit, so you just have, like I had that slight adjustment to make. Okay, see, I had the kind of notch there drawn out. I have that there, put it in place. Put your gasket on the back. Okay, this takes a little bit of niggling to get it 100%. There you go. Make sure your gasket gets into place. Okay, now I would go ahead and put the screws in there, which I can. I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay. Don't worry about everything kind of going a little off for right now, because it's going to while you're putting screws in, you're moving things around, that sort of thing. Okay. Now, I'm going to put the tri-clamps on. Pinch it together. There you go. What these are going to do is they're going to straighten them out with these product cylinders. This is your product cylinder. And the reason why you want it straightened out with your product cylinder is because those are exactly parallel and they tend to stay about as perfectly straight as it's going to get to start with, right? So the gasket on there. Go ahead and tighten that down. Now that you've got both the rotaries on there, you can start tightening things up. Okay, you notice this rotary doesn't match up to this marking. This one does, but this also telling your tail this is a little bit off here. So lining it up perfectly back here didn't work, did it? But it did. It's just you have to double check everything. This is why you don't tighten everything down all together, which I think I might have tightened that one down too far. If I feel back here with my hand, this cylinder is actually moved back in the middle of the installation process. So, looks a lot better, doesn't it? Okay, now we're matched up to those markings pretty well. There's a little deviation, but once we tighten it all down, that'll straighten out. And this one's pretty good on it too. Oh, it's actually more my writing ability. See, actually straightened out. Okay. With that lined up, now we can tighten those up. You're gonna tighten in every screw that you put on. I generally start with these because these are the ones that get forgotten the most, and these are the ones that keep your rotaries from twisting and stuff. So these will help, but once you get to run in real production with this machine, you know, you want everything to be good and snug and stay that way. Okay, now we have everything good and snug. We made our marking on here, it matches up, and we've checked to make sure that these are open to the top and closed to the front. Now we will take our fill heads and attach them to the front of it. Attach your piece here for the hopper, and you're ready to run. Now, in order to adjust this machine, there's a little set screw, set nut on it there. There's a little small one on this one too. You just screw them up. Okay, there, that way. And there's actually some on your rotary here too. Sorry, I didn't get them in the photo. Some on your rotary here too. Okay. Now your rotary cylinder, your rotary air cylinder, is basically going to stay full blast all the time. We put them on there so you can adjust it for finite things, but in reality I haven't found a really good reason for those to need to be adjusted. Okay, this is your automatic and semi-automatic switch. It's one there, and your regulator, and this is your pressure gauge. You also have a dryer on the other side of the machine that's black, and it goes down in the middle of the machine there. What you're doing with these, your front valve controls how fast this piston moves forward in that direction to push out the product coming out of your bottle, out into your bottle. So that controls how fast your product comes out into your bottle. The behind valve controls how fast that piston moves back in that direction to come into contact with a little sensor in the back of that. And what what you have going on is you have a front sensor and a back sensor, and this machine is going to move forward to that front sensor, contact it, and then once it contacts that front sensor, it's going to move back and contact the back sensor. That's how it works. So when you adjust your amount, you're adjusting this sensor that's right here, that's in the front here. You adjust it along the all thread there, and it controls how far up this piston moves to push the product out. The front valve, if you really want to, you can take a marker and put a notch in either one of them, or score it with something along those lines. In order to reset them, tighten them all the way down, like that. And now that since I have my markings, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and then that'll get you to where the machine will run. Then you can adjust it higher or lower depending on the product and that sort of thing. The air cylinder one is the exact same way. I mean, the fill head air cylinder is the exact same way. Just tighten it down all the way. 1, 2, 3. And then you set that nut down. Now this will have to be adjusted between products. They're not notched. And I don't know of any that have markings and that sort of thing on them, but once you get that notch on there, it's kind of easy to tell how far you're kind of going.